I was exiled to the border for 3 years. When I returned, I learned that my former fiancé had taken up with my timid little sister. The same sister I had protected for years, and the same one everyone said was merely my replacement. At a banquet, she clumsily broke my late mother's keepsake. She fell to her knees before me, tears streaming. "Elder sister, I didn't mean to. Please don't be angry." But before I could speak, Leon pulled her into his arms, shielding her as if I were the villain. "If you're angry," he said coldly, "take it out on me. Don't bully your sister." He didn't finish the sentence, because I had already drawn my sword and leveled the blade at his throat. "What's the rush?" I said softly. "Your turn was coming. If you love her that much, then you can die with her." Chapter 1. The day after I returned to the capital, I entered the palace to meet Emperor Jian. Just before the gates, I dismounted, only to see two silhouettes in the falling snow. Two faces I once knew as well as my own hands. Leon Li, my childhood fiancé, and Luna Jian, my half-sister. "Your cold hasn't healed," Leon murmured, wrapping his cloak around her as if she were made of glass. "Keep this on until we're back inside the palace." Snowflakes landed on her lashes, melting into perfect tears on her fragile face, a performance, polished by years of practice. "I heard, royal sister came back a few days ago," Luna whispered, voice trembling. "Everyone says she returned with military honors, that if she wants to kill me now, father might allow it." Leon pulled her closer. "With me protecting you, who would dare?" I finally stepped forward, my voice cutting through the snow. "How touching, truly." Leon stiffened, spinning around. The moment he saw me, he instinctively hid Luna behind him. "Sylvia." I rested my hand on my sword. Before I could speak, Luna rushed out with a trembling smile. 3 years apart, and royal sister is even more radiant. The harsh winds of the frontier couldn't dim you. She lowered her gaze, pretending innocence so hard it almost sparkled. I looked her over, and laughed coldly. "Compared to you, Luna, anything looks pleasant. 3 years and somehow you've become even more unbearable. Look at you too long and I might vomit." "Sylvia Jan," Leon's face darkened. "You've just returned and you're already bullying her again?" "Why? Am I not allowed?" He stared at me with disappointment he clearly thought would shame me. "You were always arrogant, always picking on Luna. I thought 3 years of exile would soften you, but you've become even crueler." A sharp, familiar ache twisted in my chest. 3 years ago, when Emperor Jiang exiled me to the northern frontier, Leon had fought the entire court to save me. He failed. He was even flogged 20 times for resisting the decree. On the day I left the capital, pale and feverish from blood loss, he came to see me off. "Sylvia," he whispered hoarsely, "I'll wait for you. No matter how long, I'll wait." I believed him. Now he hid someone else behind his back. I let out a laugh, sharp and humorless. "Yes, I'm arrogant, and I've killed people as well. If that scares you, then tell the little fake fragile girl in your arms to stop provoking me." Leaving the two of them pale and silent, I turned toward the imperial study. By the time I finished reporting to Emperor Jian, night had fallen. I was about to leave when he suddenly asked, "You've returned for days. Have you seen Adrian yet?" My breath snagged. "No. Go see him. Adrian Jiang, my full brother. After our mother died, we survived the palace only by relying on each other. 3 years ago, I was exiled because I took the blame for him. It had rained that day. Punished, I knelt outside the hall while Adrian held an umbrella over me, eyes reddened. "I carry a criminal status now," I said softly. "Brother, stay away from me." "Sylvia, it was my fault. I failed to protect you." 3 years passed. He was now the crown prince. Yet today, I stood outside the Eastern Palace for an entire hour. His servants repeated the same excuse. "The crown prince is busy." At last, I smiled faintly. "If he's occupied, I'll visit another day." I turned, only to run straight into Luna. Without Leon around, her softness vanished. She tilted her head and smiled sweetly. "What's wrong, royal sister? Did the crown prince refuse to see you?" I said nothing. Instead, I grabbed her collar and kicked her knees out. She fell into the snow with a shrill cry. Pressing her face into the icy ground, I said, "You know I returned with military honors, yet you don't bow? Is this the etiquette you've learned as a princess?" Only after she lay humiliated in the snow did I release her. At the end of the corridor, something made me turn back. The Eastern Palace gates, firmly shut for me, swaggered open the moment Luna arrived. I made your favorite sweet soup. What happened to you? Adrian's voice was soft, too soft. From afar, Luna sniffled. It's nothing, I slipped. A pause. Maybe royal sister wasn't happy to see me. 7 days later came a grand palace banquet. Rumors had roared through the capital since my return. That's Princess Sylvia, the one who used to bully the 6th princess. She's vicious, I heard. 3 years at the frontier made her even worse. No wonder the Marquis's heir fell for the gentler sister. I heard the crown prince wouldn't even meet her. As I entered, whispers died like snuffed candles. Luna soon approached me, dressed in luxurious silks, holding a wine cup with trembling hands. I wronged royal sister in the past. Her sleeve shifted, and a familiar jade bracelet slid into view. Mother's bracelet. I seized her wrist. Who allowed you to wear my mother's keepsake and parade it before me? Luna burst into tears. See, Crown Prince Adrian gave it to me. I'll take it off right now. Flustered, she tugged at it. Her hand slipped. The bracelet hit the floor, shattering. I stood so quickly my chair scraped across the marble. Do you have a death wish? I'm sorry, royal sister, I didn't mean it. My knees, they were injured when you forced me to kneel in the snow. Before she could finish, Leon appeared and hauled her into his arms. I did shift my feelings to Luna after you left, he said coldly. But she's innocent. If you're angry, blame me. Don't hurt your sister. My sword was already drawn, the tip at his throat. Why rush? It's your turn. I shot Luna a look dripping with contempt. You treasure her so much, then die with her. A hush fell. The blade barely nicked his skin when a cup smashed into my wrist. Pain shot up my arm. I staggered, and Leon pulled Luna away. On the steps above stood a man in dark robes. Adrian, my brother. The one I once trusted most. Sylvia Jiang, he said coldly. Who allowed you to draw your sword in the palace? My wrist throbbed, he had struck an old wound, but I forced myself upright. She broke Mother's relic. That bracelet was a gift from me to Luna, he replied sharply, and I will decide how to handle it. His eyes were ice. I know what you did outside the Eastern Palace. You humiliated her. Again. Go kneel outside the hall. Reflect for 2 hours. The court burst into whispers. See, even the crown prince despises her. She's only a woman with military merit. Who knows if she stole the credit? She just wants to climb back into power. People in the capital always follow the wind. Adrian didn't even look at me. He went straight to Luna, who trembled prettily in Leon's arms. Are you hurt? He asked gently. He examined her hands with care he never gave me. I'm fine, brother, she whispered. Sylvia didn't mean it. I just broke the bracelet. It's only a trinket, Adrian soothed her. I'll choose a better one for you. Then she pressed the final knife into place. Brother, can you not punish Sylvia? She acted out of impulse. I laughed, a sharp, bright sound that cut through the hall. What a show! Should I set up a stage so my dear brother and his adopted sister can continue performing? Absurd, Adrian snapped. Sylvia Jiang, I told you to kneel. Why are you disobeying? Even if you recaptured 3 cities, it was only to atone for your crime. Do you know the punishment for defying the crown? Luna hid behind him, radiant with triumph. I raised my sword, the blood along its edge glinting. You still remember I was exiled under a false charge, I said softly. But do you remember whose charge it was? Adrian froze. If I hadn't taken the blame, would you still be crown prince? If you'd gone to the frontier, you'd have died 100 times. Sitting in the Eastern Palace hasn't broadened your mind, brother. It's turned you into a nagging eunuch. I smiled. You want me to kneel? Ask my sword if it agrees. Before our standoff could break into violence, Emperor Jian arrived. Enough. You are siblings. Why fight? Sylvia, put your sword away. Adrian is still your brother. Brother. The word hollowed something inside me. Later, riding home in the Princess Manor's carriage, sword across my knees, a warm, calloused hand covered mine. I heard what happened, said Jade Fang, my strategist and closest companion. Your Highness should not act impulsively. Her steady presence calmed the fire inside me. Did you find what I asked for? I asked. I did, Jade said, face hardening. His Majesty knew you took the blame. After distancing himself from the second prince, Adrian used a court case to win Consort Ja's favor. Only then was he named Crown Prince. I chuckled. So he earned the position by flattering the woman who poisoned our mother. The carriage jolted over the snowy road. In the dim candlelight, memories pressed in, Mother's trembling hands, Luna delivering the poisoned tonic. Her final words, "You only have each other now. Protect your sister. Always." At 12, Adrian had sworn he would, but he never did. I opened my eyes and met Jade's steady gaze. A slow, cold smile curved my lips. The crown prince's seat belongs to the capable. If Adrian Jiang is useless, I lifted my sword, then we'll replace him. Chapter 2. I knew that by dragging up the past and slapping Adrian Jiang in public, I had humiliated him. He wouldn't let it go. Sure enough, after the banquet, the rumors in the capital grew even worse. People said I only returned to the capital by stealing my subordinate's merits. I heard those 4 cities she recovered in a row were taken by soldiers who put their lives on the line. Exactly. A pampered princess who grew up in silk and jade, what would she know about war? She even killed several vice-generals just to silence them and take their credit. The gossip spread like wildfire. Emperor Jiang couldn't sit still. He summoned me back to the palace. "Sylvia, I know life at the frontier was hard for you," he said. "But these rumors don't come from nowhere. The officials are not entirely unreasonable. As for what happened back then, you were young and foolish. I chose to let it go. I will grant you a new title. Hand over your military tally and live quietly as a princess from now on." I didn't answer right away. Instead, I looked up at Adrian Jiang standing beside him, chin lifted, eyes full of arrogance. That day at the banquet, I shamed him in front of everyone, but because he feared the military power in my hands, he couldn't retaliate on the spot. This plan had to be his idea. What an idiot. I took out the tally. Before handing it over, I bowed respectfully. "I only ever fought for father," I said. "Yet while I was away at the frontier, Luna Jiang stole my fiancé. I was asking him for a promise." He didn't hesitate. "Luna went too far," he said. "If you bear resentment and need to vent, that is understandable." Adrian frowned. "Father." "That's enough. It's settled," Emperor Jiang said, cutting him off. "Sylvia, go back to your manor." On my way out, I ran into Luna Jiang. Wrapped in a cloak, she leaned against the railing and gave me a sweet, innocent smile. "I actually know, royal sister," she said softly, "that you risked your life killing enemies at the frontier to help Crown Prince Adrian secure his place in the capital. But what's the point? Now, I'm the sister he treasures. I'm the woman Leon loves. All those rare treasures sent into the palace get shown to me first, so I can pick what I like. The things you bought with your life only make my life more comfortable. Royal sister, do you hate me?" I stared at her calmly for a moment. Then I stepped forward, grabbed her collar, and slapped her twice across the face. Her pale cheeks swelled and turned red. She fell to the ground, staring at me in disbelief. "Sylvia Jiang!" I hauled her back up and kicked her hard in the stomach. "You know I've killed people," I said coldly, "and you still dare to provoke me?" She curled up in the snow in pain, eyes filled with venom. Looking down at her, I sneered. "If you feel wronged, go cry to your dear brother. Go to your precious lover too. Let's see if they'll actually stand up for you. If they'll really call this justice for you." Of course they wouldn't. I had just handed over my command. Even for the sake of appearances, Emperor Jiang would never punish me over something this petty. On the contrary, he issued an edict conferring on me the title Princess Minghua and rewarded me with piles of rare treasures. I accepted the decree and thanked him. Then I turned around and told Jade Fang to send everything to the Jiangnan region and the northern frontier to be sold off. Consider it advanced preparation for the war funds. Late at night, the two of us sat face to face in the pavilion of my manor. "Adrian Jiang is truly a fool," I said. "Does he really think those rumors could spread so fast without my permission?" "That's right. The rumors that I stole military merit were planted by Jade and me. The more incompetent and powerless Princess Sylvia Jiang appeared on the surface, the easier it would be to recruit troops and move forces in secret. I'd long seen that Emperor Jiang was dim and weak. I had originally returned to the capital to help my brother overthrow him, to pay back our enemies and bring peace to Mother's spirit. But Adrian chose to treat the enemy as family. He became a useless fool. It's fine. If he's useless, then I'll take his place." Using the promise I wrung out of Emperor Jiang in exchange for the military tally, I started going into the palace every day, openly bullying Luna Jiang. I cut up her expensive embroidered gowns, smashed her jewelry, and forced her to bow to me with her forehead to the floor. I didn't stop until her head was bleeding. She still tried to play the delicate white flower, trembling and sobbing. I don't know how I've offended royal sister. I grabbed her hair and slammed her head against the table. Save your tears for Leon Li and Adrian Zhang, I said with a smile. Those two idiots might enjoy them more. I know you resent me for being loved by the crown prince and the Marquis's heir. I kicked her over. Please, if they love you so much, why don't they take revenge for you? She was no longer the powerless girl she once was. Now she was Adrian's favorite sister and had climbed onto Consort Zhao's branch along with him. Unfortunately for her, both of them still had to live under Emperor Zhang's nose, and he was busy reclaiming the army I'd commanded for 3 years. He didn't dare punish me openly. In his eyes, I was just a hysterical princess who only dared to bully Luna, never him. That suited him just fine. Before long, it was Jade Fang's birthday. I went to the largest jewelry shop in the capital to choose a gift for her, and ran right into Leon Li. His gaze fell on the pear-blossom jade hairpin in my hand, and his expression shifted. Sylvia. I paused and suddenly remembered. When I was 13, he had given me a pear-blossom hairpin he carved himself as a token of our engagement. At the time, Consort Zhao was in favor and ruled the inner palace. Life was hard for Adrian and me. As the Marquis' loyal valor's heir, Leon faced enormous pressure. Everyone in the palace said his father wanted to break off our engagement and marry him to another noble girl. So he made that hairpin and brought it to me. I saw the fine cuts and scars all over his hands, but I didn't take it. Our engagement will be dissolved soon, I said with a sigh. It's better if you take it back and stay away from me, my lord heir. Who said it will be dissolved? He raised his voice slightly and forced the hairpin into my palm. In this life, the only person I want to marry is Sylvia Jiang, he said. This vow will never change. Actually, Sylvia, our engagement was never annulled. Now, Leon looked at me, eyes full of longing and conflict. Now that you're back, we can still marry, he said. I only hope you won't bully Luna anymore. She lost her mother young and doesn't know anything. She's just a simple girl. As for the past, maybe you misunderstood. I lifted my head sharply and stared at him. Rage and a sharp, twisting pain surged through me. I had told him before that my mother's poisoning was Luna's doing, that she acted to curry favor with Consort Zhao. Back then, he had stood with me. Whatever revenge you seek, he'd said, I'll protect you. And now in just 3 short years, here we were. How disgusting. I grabbed the hairpin and strode up to him. Before he could react, I seized his throat and slammed him back into the wall. The back of his head hit stone with a dull thud. Do you think you're noble and devoted? I asked, voice low. Do you think you're making some grand sacrifice, marrying me just so Luna won't be bullied? Did it never occur to you that I might not want to marry a useless man who only lives off his ancestors' glory? If my mother hadn't interceded for your father back then, he would have been stripped of his title and cast out long ago. You wouldn't even be the heir today. If my mother hadn't looked after Luna, Consort Zhao would have had her killed 100 times over. She repaid kindness with betrayal. You turned your back on me for her. You and Luna really are a perfect pair of low-born trash. Before he recovered, I raised the hairpin and plunged its sharp tip into his shoulder. Blood splattered. Watching his face twist in pain, I said slowly, "Don't come near me again. Next time I'll aim for your heart." When spring came and the ice melted, trouble broke out in the Jiangman region. The Hua Kingdom, a small island nation on the Eastern Sea, somehow obtained our border defense maps. Under cover of night, they launched a surprise attack on Haizhou Commandery. They burned, killed, and plundered, their cruelty unmatched. For a time, no one could stop them. And my foolish, useless father, his first reaction was not to send reinforcements. It was to avoid conflict. He sent envoys to negotiate with the Hua Kingdom. In the end, he invited their emissaries into the capital and held a grand banquet in their honor. Naturally, I was invited too. I turned to Jade Fang. You were born and raised on the northern frontier, I said. Didn't you always say you wanted to see the capital's splendor at least once? Come on. I'll take you into the palace today. We shared a carriage. She shook her head. A ruler and a crown prince, she said. 2 men, and neither has a spine. Faced with a tiny island nation, their first instinct is to retreat and negotiate. I tugged at the corner of my lips, though there was no humor in my eyes. Exactly. Ridiculous. In the great hall, I saw the envoys from the Wa kingdom. They were short and squat, with shifty eyes and vicious looks. They gave Emperor Jian a barely acceptable bow, then began to stare around the hall without restraint. Their gaze paused on my face for a moment. Then one of them exchanged a look with Adrian Jiang. After several rounds of wine, Emperor Jiang smiled kindly and asked, "What will it take for you to withdraw your troops?" The lead envoy suddenly dropped to his knees. "Your Majesty," he said, "our heavenly emperor has long wished to bind our 2 nations by marriage. He sent us to ask for a princess. If Princess Minghua will come to our land as a bride, His Majesty will grant her the rank of honored consort. We beg your Majesty to agree." I raised my head and stared at Adrian Jiang on the high seat. At Luna Jiang beside him, her lips unable to hide their smug curve. "Add." I only got one syllable out before an old marquis dropped to his knees among the officials. It was Lian Li's father, the Marquis Loyal Valor. "May Princess Minghua consider the bigger picture," he cried, "and think of the empire's future and the people's safety." Around him, officials began to kneel in a wave, all facing me. "Please, Your Highness, show great righteousness." It clicked in an instant. There had never been any mysterious leak of our border defenses. From the beginning, this had been a trap set by my dear brother to disgrace me and get rid of me. The Marquis raised his wrinkled face, tears streaming down. He hid his obvious goal behind a veil of so-called duty and sacrifice. "I know Your Highness is noble and would never wish to cross the sea," he said. "But for the people." Adrian Jiang. I ignored the others and locked eyes with the Crown Prince. "For your own selfish desires, you've thrown the people's safety aside. You sit there, high above, without shame. With a conscience like that, you dare call yourself Crown Prince?" His face darkened. "Ridiculous," he snapped. "Sylvia Jiang, do you not understand rank and respect?" "Respect?" I rolled the word on my tongue and slowly scanned the hall, meeting every gaze. It felt like watching a farce. Then I laughed. "All right, brother," I said. "Let me show you what my respect looks like." I triggered the mechanism sewn into my sleeve. A dagger, strapped along my forearm, slid neatly into my hand. The familiar roughness of the hilt pressed into my palm. Dagger in hand, I leapt forward. In a flash, I was in front of the smug Wa envoys. I raised my arm and slashed. With a wet sound, the blade cut through flesh and severed throats. Blood sprayed. Hot droplets spattered my face. I wiped them away without care, the thick metallic smell filling my lungs. 3 bodies hit the floor. Slowly, I turned around. Emperor Jiang shot to his feet, furious and terrified. "Minghua, you're mad!" "I'm not." Blood streamed down the dagger, gathering at the tip before dripping onto the floor. Standing over the corpses, I saw my reflection in the official's eyes, like a ghost from hell. "Whoever offends us," I said, "dies, no matter how far they run. Father, that is my rule. The Wa Kingdom is a tiny vassal that's coveted our lands for 10 years. This time they burned and slaughtered their way through Haizhou Commandery. Their crimes are unforgivable. I choose war, not peace. Please issue an edict, Father. Let me lead an army south to drive out the invaders and retake Haizhou Commandery." My last sentence landed like a hammer. "Your Highness," the Marquis Loyal Valor still hated me for injuring his son. He tried to speak again. I tightened my grip on the dagger. With an impatient flick of my wrist, I sliced off a large lock of his hair. "Shut up, old widower." Emperor Jiang clutched the Dragon Throne's armrest, staring at me in shock and uncertainty. He was never much of a ruler. He had seized the throne thanks to my mother and her family, then grown afraid of them. Once he was secure, he coldly pushed my mother aside and favored scholars over generals. That was how he ended up here. Back when my grandfather and uncle still lived, the Wa Kingdom wouldn't have dared raise their heads. They bowed and scraped at our feet. Now, several old generals who had once served under my uncle and still held minor posts in court stepped forward and knelt. They had long since lost influence, crushed under Emperor Jiang's civil-over-military policy. But they still had voices. "Please allow the princess to march south," they said, "and reclaim Haizhou Commandery. He had just taken my army away, and now he would have to put it back into my hands." Emperor Jiang was clearly unwilling, but I had killed the Hua envoys in the middle of court. There was no way the Hua kingdom would negotiate now. He had no choice but to agree to send troops. To keep me in check, he named Lian Li as imperial overseer for the campaign, supervising the army in the field. I didn't care. Let go of those who abandoned me. Yesterday is gone. If he dared to stand in my way, Haizhou Commandery would simply become his grave. After receiving the edict, I left the hall with Jade Fang. I didn't spare a glance for Luna Jiang's ashen face at the side. Anyone whose world revolves around romance and backyard feuds was never worthy of being my true enemy. She was just one of the people I was destined to kill. Outside, the sun was sinking. Red gold lights spilled over the golden roofs and glazed tiles of the palace. Jade sighed. I suddenly think you were right back then, she said. I turned to her. About what? The capital may be more prosperous than the northern frontier, she said, looking at the glittering roofs, but it's rotten to the core. Her gaze slid back to me. Watching you draw your blade and kill those envoys today, she added with a small smile. It was clean and decisive, bloody and beautiful. I raised a brow. How did it compare to when you killed your husband? I asked. She clapped her hands and laughed. You've improved a lot. I first met Jade Fang in the second year of my exile. Using my grandfather's old contacts, I entered the army. With the sword skills my uncle drilled into me, I threw myself onto the battlefield. In the army, there is no princess or commoner. And I was a criminal besides. I put the strategies my grandfather and mother had taught me into practice, leading a small strike force around the flank. We won a decisive victory. I was wounded, but from that day on, I had a firm footing in the army. A few brothers took me out to relax afterward. That was when I saw him, the scholar who'd been hired to help soldiers write letters home. He was beating a woman on the ground with a stick, shouting that he would sell her to a brothel. I'm going to the capital for the exams, he yelled. Travel costs money. As my wife, you should help me. When she refused, something cold flashed in his eyes. He reached down and started tearing at her clothes. If men in the street see your body, he sneered, how can you still be my proper wife? I drew my sword and killed him. Then I took off my cloak and wrapped it around the half-naked woman on the ground. Her empty eyes slowly regained focus, but she didn't cry. General, she said. She grabbed my sleeve and pushed herself up, leaning on one hand. May I go with you? Before I could answer, she sucked in a breath and laid out her terms. My name is Jade Fang. My father was a private tutor. I've been reading and writing since I was 5. My husband only passed the county exam because I wrote his essays. I've studied military texts. I can read maps. I'm not useless. She was sharp and knew how to judge timing. The first time we met, she calmly laid all her cards on the table. I realized then that she was valuable, my clever strategist. My most trusted partner in treason. That night, a single lamp flickered to life. Your Highness, the journey to Jiangnan will be long, she said, raising her cup to me. I'll stay here at the Princess Manor and watch over this filthy capital. I'll wait for you to return. Chapter 3. When we set out for Haizhou Commandery, Lian Li's wounds still hadn't fully healed. I rode on horseback. He had to sit in a carriage. Whenever we stopped to rest, I could feel his complicated gaze fall on me again and again. At last, on the day we reached the outskirts of Haizhou, he stopped me outside my tent. Sylvia, can we talk? What do you want to talk about? I looked at him with interest. If it's anything about our old engagement, don't bother. I find it disgusting. You were so well read once, he said. Now you speak like this. As a princess, you shouldn't. I lost all patience and slapped him. Lian Li, my noble marquise's heir, I said coldly. I spent 3 years in a frontier barracks. Did you think I went there to enjoy myself? The wind and snow in the northern frontier don't raise fragile decorations like you people in the capital. You already admitted you shifted your feelings to Luna Jiang. Why pretend you've always loved me? He met my eyes and was silent for a moment. Then he said, Sylvia Jiang, do you really think we ended up like this only because of me? If you hadn't ignored my warnings and insisted on taking the crown prince's place for that murder, you would never have been exiled. You left for 3 years without a word. If Luna hadn't tried so hard to cheer me up, I might never have lasted until your return. You only had your brother in your heart. When was I ever first in your eyes?" For a moment I was actually stunned by how shameless he was. Then anger surged up from my chest. "If I hadn't taken the blame, Adrian John would have died at the border," I snapped. "He'd never be crown prince. You'd never be basking in glory. You think your brotherly bond is so deep. Don't tell me you really believe he attacked the Grand Seer because the man insulted my mother?" I froze. A chill shot up my spine. "What do you mean?" Leon stared straight at me, then slowly bared his teeth in a cold smile. "At the time, the crown prince was out of favor," he said. "He'd been suppressed several times by Consort Zhao's faction. He was seething, so he started haunting the pleasure quarters. He and the Grand Seer, whom the Emperor had only just begun to value, fell for the same courtesan. They argued over her. He was drunk, his temper flared, he hit too hard. That's how someone died." My mind lurched back 3 years. I remembered that winter day when the snow was falling. Adrian had come to me in a panic. The hem of his black robe was stained with drying blood. He said the Grand Seer belonged to Consort Zhao, and that in a brothel he had dared to compare my mother to a common whore. I argued with him, Adrian had said. I lost control. I had asked, "Brother, what were you doing in such a place?" He had answered without a pause. "I was following him. I wanted proof that he and Consort Zhao were conspiring to deceive father. He was my brother, my only full-blooded brother. Of course I believed him. He was the legitimate son but still weak in power. If he bore the crime of murder, father would cast him aside completely. Since childhood, grandfather taught us strategy. Adrian favored letters. I favored the sword. No matter what, he couldn't fall. Go change, I had told him. Burn the bloody robes, leave no evidence. Remember, brother, I said. I killed him. I snapped back to the present and stared at Leon Li. There was a twisted sense of relief on his face, as if exposing this truth comforted him, as if he deserved that feeling. Since you knew all along, I said, each word slow and sharp, and never told me, how are you any different from him? Leon Li, you and Adrian Zhang are the same, shameless, filthy cowards. I didn't sleep that night. A pale moon hung in the dark sky. The wind blowing in from Haizhou carried the smell of the sea. Sitting in the moonlight with my sword in my arms, I went over the past again and again. So the root of everything wasn't in those 3 years I was gone. My brother, my childhood sweetheart, they'd been rotten long before. But so what? So what? 3 years. 1,000 days. The bitter cold of the frontier had ground me down and reforged me. My heart was stone. Nothing could shake it anymore. Retaking Haizhou went more smoothly than I expected. The Wa Kingdom excelled at naval warfare. So I dragged them onto land, forced their formations to break, and crushed them in pieces. As we reclaimed Haizhou, step by step, Leon Li's gaze grew stranger. There was conflict in it, and reluctance, even a faint hatred. In the final battle, the Wa forces were in full retreat. I chased their commander on horseback into a barren valley. A few moments later, Leon followed. 2 against 1, and the enemy already exhausted. It should have been an easy victory. But just as I raised my blade to strike the enemy commander, Leon suddenly turned his sword and swung hard at my horse's front legs. The stallion screamed and crashed to the ground. I pitched forward. The enemy's sword point lunged for my heart. It was about to pierce my chest. Leon's voice came coldly, as if he had finally made up his mind. "Sylvia Jiang, I was never the one who truly wronged you," he said. "No one in the palace ever wanted you to come back alive." The enemy's sword pierced my chest. But it stopped halfway. It couldn't go deeper. Leon froze, still gripping the hilt. At that instant, a sharp arrow flew in from the side. The force was so great, it snapped the sword in two. I had a moment to breathe. I leapt down from my fallen horse, raised my own long sword, and swung with all my strength. The Wa commander's head flew. His face was still twisted in fear and disbelief as it tumbled through the air. Then I turned sharply, pulled the longbow from my back, took aim, and released. The arrow shot clean through Leon Li's back. He toppled from his horse and rolled into the low brush. I drew a few breaths, then walked toward him, sword dripping blood. He wasn't dead yet. He lay on his back among the shrubs, face battered, staring up at me in shock. His lips moved, but only blood and a few broken syllables came out. "Sylvia. What an idiot," I said. I braced my sword on the ground and leaned down on one knee, lightly patting his face. I've known for a long time what you were all planning, I said. Did you really think I wouldn't be on guard? I checked. He stammered. There were no ambush troops here. I laughed. When you forced me to hand over the military tally, did you really think I'd spend the rest of my life as a declawed princess? I asked, beating and scolding Luna Jiang just to vent my anger. The South was rich. Jade Fang and I had already contacted the old soldiers who once served my grandfather. We'd prepared elite troops, fine horses, and ample supplies, hidden on Lizhou Island, right next to Haizhou. Days ago, I sent orders for them to travel in small groups and lie low all over Haizhou, including here. You and Adrian Jian want to kill me? I said. If you had the guts to come at me openly, sword in hand, I might respect you for having some blood in your veins. But you don't. You used the Hua Kingdom to humiliate me. You were willing to sacrifice countless lives in Haizhou just to get rid of me. I'll use your blood to answer for theirs, I said. Starting with you. I drew my dagger. While he was still conscious, I grabbed his throat and slowly slit it open. Hot blood bubbled over my hands. I watched his face twist in agony and felt satisfied. Then something occurred to me. Oh right, I said. You must be wondering why your sword didn't go into my heart. I tugged open my clothes and pulled out a heart guard mirror, cracked all over. Sorry, I said. I have a strategist who makes armor for me. You don't. Time turned back to the night before we set out. Jade Fang and I sat up by candlelight, laying out every piece on the board in the capital. When we finished, she got up, opened a Huanghuali wood cabinet, and took out a small heart guard mirror. I made 2 layers, she said. Snow lotus flowers around the edge. Think of it as a blessing for your safety. I glanced at it and smiled. Your embroidery's improved again, Jade. She rolled her eyes, bent down, and pulled open my collar to place the mirror properly against my chest. This will protect you from petty men, she said. Not noble ones. Haizhou was reclaimed. The imperial overseer, the Marquis' heir Lian Li, was executed on the spot for colluding with the Hua Kingdom and attempting to murder Princess Minghua. I led 10,000 elite troops home in triumph. Along the way, people lined the roads to welcome us. On the day we reached the capital, lights burned all night in the main hall of my manor. Jade Fang and I sat side by side on the couch. A single flame flickered in her eyes. Everything is in place, she said. In the process, I also found something interesting, she added. It might help us get rid of your brother with even less bloodshed. The next evening, Emperor Zhang held a feast in the palace in my honor. He raised his cup and toasted me from afar. I knew what he intended. First reward me. Then press me, soft and hard, to give up my command again. Unfortunately, father, what you want won't happen this time. Turning my cup between my fingers, I smiled. Father, you should drink less, I said lightly. If you drain yourself completely and can't satisfy Consort Zhou, won't poor brother have to toil in your place again? The hall fell silent. Sylvia Jiang, what nonsense are you spouting? Adrian Jiang reacted first. He shot to his feet, so furious and startled that he knocked over the low table in front of him. I shifted my gaze to him and laughed softly. Your Highness, I said, before you make such a fuss, maybe hide the love bite on your neck from your May-December romance first? His hand flew to his neck on instinct. The moment his fingers touched skin, he realized what he'd done. But the meaning in that gesture was obvious. Your Majesty, someone cried out. I looked up and saw Emperor Jian on the high dais. His hand was raised, pointing at Adrian, but his eyes rolled back and his hand shook violently. You unfilial son! He forced out those words, then his head slumped to the side and he fainted. Guards! Panic rippled through the hall. I, however, felt my face harden. My hand dropped to my sword hilt. Adrian Jian has defied his sovereign and broken all moral law, I said clearly. He dared to sleep with a royal consort and even plotted to murder the emperor. Seize him. And that consort Zhao, hiding in the harem and feigning illness, throw her into the imperial prison as well. The imperial guards, now fully replaced with my own people, surged forward. Other officials opened their mouths to protest, but when hundreds of my soldiers flooded into the hall with weapons drawn, they wisely shut them again. I walked at an unhurried pace to where Adrian was being forced to his knees, arms pinned behind him. I picked up a cup, smashed it, and pressed a sharp shard of porcelain against his throat. His face went corpse pale. He couldn't speak. Brother, I said softly, you conspired against father. You took the enemy as your mother and slept with her. For crimes like that, if I kill you now, even in your next life you'll only be fit for the animal realm, don't you think? This was the interesting thing Jade Fang had discovered. Consort Zhou had always been ruled by desire. When she was young, she seduced Emperor Zheng and slowly drained his strength. Then, when he could no longer keep up, she coaxed him into using medicine for years. By now, nothing worked on him anymore. So she turned her sights on Adrian Jiang, young, strong, and eager. She and Adrian indulged themselves, and seeing that Emperor Zhang was old but still clinging to power, she began poisoning him little by little, hoping Adrian would replace him soon. In the end, she paved the way for me instead. That night, the imperial palace of the Zhang kingdom blazed with light and nearly ran with blood. I rooted out the last loyalists who refused to surrender to Adrian's cause. By the time the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, it was done. I walked toward Luna Zhang's residence. As soon as I entered, I nearly ran into Jade Fang. Things were chaotic in the hall, she said. She slipped away in the confusion but ran into one of our patrols at the south gate. They brought her to me. She patted my shoulder lightly. From everything you've told me, she said, I thought you'd prefer to have this conversation here, alone. Then she left. Only Luna, the guards at the door, and I remained. I looked her over, then kicked her in the waist. When she fell, I ground my heel into her stomach again and again. Luna Jiang, I said, you were born to a maid. You were bullied all your life in the palace. My mother took pity on you. She saved you from Consort Zhou again and again, then brought you into her own quarters, raised you with me, fed you the same food. But you repaid kindness with poison. You crawled to Consort Zhou and helped her kill my mother. She was just a fallen empress, Luna gasped. Consort Zhou was rising. How long could she protect you, really? Her voice still sounded timid and innocent. If a person doesn't look out for themselves, the heavens will destroy them, she whispered. If I hadn't pleased Consort Zhou, a low-born princess like me would have been sent away as a marriage pawn the moment I came of age. Rage rolled through my chest. I stomped on her again, harder. She coughed in pain. I don't understand, she choked out. Why? What why? Wasn't Leon Li the one you loved? She asked. He shifted his feelings to me. You should have been heartbroken. How could you? How dare you kill him? And the crown prince, he's your full-blooded brother. A brother like that? I snorted. Whoever wants him can have him. I don't. I crouched down and lifted her chin with the tip of my dagger. You liked them, didn't you? I asked softly. Then I'll give them to you. I slashed my dagger across her pretty face. 2 intersecting cuts, deep enough to show bone. She touched her face with a trembling hand. Then she began to scream, wild and shrill. That's enough to scare you, Luna Jiang. I smiled thinly. We're only getting started. I had Luna Jiang and Consort Zhou thrown into the dungeon. Every day they were force-fed medicine. Their bodies were kept alive and strong, while their nerves were sharpened until pain was 10 times worse. Then the guards cut them, slice by slice, every half hour, a strip of flesh at a time. As for my foolish, useless father, even with the imperial physicians doing their best, he was already hollowed out. The poison had eaten into him. The shock of that night broke him. Half his body was paralyzed. It didn't matter. I had them hold his hand and help him sign an edict, deposing the crown prince and passing the throne to Princess Minghua. Then, very kindly, I gave the physicians more orders. Take good care of father, I said. Make sure he lives a long, peaceful life. Oh, and my mother, grandfather, and uncle all died early. I'm sure father must feel guilty about that. So every day, help him out of bed and take him to their memorial tablets. Have him kneel 100 times in front of each. That will be my filial piety as his daughter. The servants murmured their obedience. My father, mouth twisted and one eye drooping, lay on the bed staring at me. His eyes were wild, but he could no longer form complete words. I stood by the bed and smiled at him. Father, I said quietly, you always said I had no manners, that mother failed to teach me properly. You punished me many times for that. Now you can finally see, I added, voice soft and steady, what my manners really look like. The next year, I was busier than ever. I gathered all the old forces who once served my grandfather and organized them into a single army. We marched north toward the northern frontier, and I took 6 of the Qiang tribe's cities in a row. Just as we were about to reach their royal city, they finally sent a letter of surrender. They agreed to become my vassal state and pay tribute every year. It said, someone reported, they will also send their most beautiful 9th prince as a consort to your majesty. I propped my chin on my hand and said lazily, "Is that so?" "That's a minor matter. The Wa Kingdom has never learned its lesson. They raided our southern seas again and again. Haizhou Commandery and Lizhou have lost many lives because of them. I've spent half a year training sailors. It's time they met our fleet." I considered for a moment, issued several decrees, and dismissed the court. After the officials withdrew, only Jade Fang remained in the hall. I'd already made her a marquise and prime minister. "Your Majesty," she said, "I still have something important to report." I looked at her serious face and teased, "Is it something you can't tell me over dinner tonight?" "Adrian John wants to see you." My hands stilled. If she hadn't said his name, I might have forgotten my dear brother entirely. After the palace coup, I had dealt with all my other enemies. Only Adrian remained. Those days, I kept dreaming of my mother, of our childhood. I'd always been gifted in martial arts. Father scolded me constantly, said no princess should be so rough, so unladylike. Sometimes I couldn't help my tears. Adrian would sneak out of the palace to buy sugar figurines from the streets to cheer me up. He had truly once been the good brother who shared my blood. And I had truly wanted to help him ascend the throne, then avenge Mother. My feelings for him were far more complicated than anything I ever felt for Leon Li. So I had only locked him in the dungeon with dozens of snakes. I hadn't killed him. Now when I entered the dungeon, I saw what he'd become. He was so thin he was barely human. Of course, he had been terrified of snakes since childhood. When he saw me, something flickered in his dead eyes. When he spoke, his voice was so hoarse it sounded like torn silk. Why didn't you just kill me?" I opened the cell door and stood over him, looking down. "Why did you do it?" I asked. The darkness and torment had slowed his thoughts. It took him a long time to respond. "Why?" he repeated. "Because I'm a prince," he said. "And you're just a princess." She suffered a bit of grievance in the harem. But me? I went hungry. I wore rags. In court, Father barely looked at me. When I finally received a post, her faction blocked me everywhere. I failed at everything, and Father scolded me again and again. "How could you possibly understand what my life was like? I was the legitimate son," he rasped. "Yet even eunuchs outranked me. Any noble son could push me around as he pleased." "That's because you're weak," I snapped. "If I were you, I'd rather draw my sword and die fighting than live crawling at their feet. Even if it was that bad, when did Mother ever wrong you? When did I ever wrong you?" "She wronged me," he shouted, voice cracking. "Why could Consort Zhao win favor, and she could not humble herself for my sake?" His expression twisted as he looked up at me. "Blame her for being a discarded empress," he said. "A useless mother." Rage flared like fire. I grabbed his collar and slammed him against the stone wall. Once, twice. Again. I didn't stop until he slipped from my hands like a pile of broken meat. Straightening, I looked down at him. Blood and hair clung together. His face was barely recognizable. My lips moved. "Goodbye, brother," I said. That night, I dreamed of my mother again. Because I had killed Adrian with my own hands, I almost couldn't look her in the eyes, but she walked over and stroked my hair. "Sylvia," she said. "I'm sorry, Mother." I whispered. "You did nothing wrong," she said gently. "It was Adrian as your brother who failed to protect you." In the dream, she took my rough, scarred hands and held them in hers. "You must have suffered so much," she said, voice aching with pity. "My Sylvia." It felt like my heart had been lowered into warm water. All the last scraps of grief and guilt dissolved with her words. I opened my eyes. The moon outside the window was bright. The past drifted through my mind like sand in the wind and scattered quietly into the night. That year, I was 20. I had destroyed every enemy. I had gained everything I wanted. From then on, all that remained of my life was a name for the ages.